Home and Community-Based Services, also known as Hcbs. Home and Community-Based Services is a federal regulation. During this presentation, we'll discuss definitions and requirements to maintain compliance. To help us understand Hcbs, we first must review some definitions. Home and Community Services, also known as Hcbs, is a federal entity that measures compliance to the federal rule to ensure that people with disabilities have full access to and enjoy the benefits of community living through long-term services and supports in the most integrated setting of their choosing. 60% of funding for services comes from this federal entity. TJ Swift House is required to assure compliance to the federal rule. Individualized Support Plan, also known as the ISP. Every person in TJ Swift House Services has an ISP. The ISP drives all services. The ISP is required by both the federal and state entities. The ISP identifies all pertinent information about the person. The direct support professional needs to know the ISP extremely well. It needs to be reviewed often to assure information is correct and current. Regional Office. The Regional Office is a division of the Missouri Department of Mental Health. The Regional Office determines a person's eligibility for services and is the gatekeeper of federal and state funding. Rights. People with disability have the same legal rights and responsibilities as any other citizen. Direct support professionals cannot restrict or control people's rights. Rights can be restricted if actions are jeopardizing health and safety. Discussion needs to be held with a team. Due process. A process of rights restoration and to be heard by an external group. Informed decision making. People with disabilities have the same rights to make their own decision. Sometimes they need help making decisions. We have to make sure the options they are given are safe and they aren't going to be taken advantage of. Informed decision making is a process of making decisions with the options given. Hcbs are services funded by a federal entity through the Missouri Department of Mental Health and then to contracted providers. To assure TJ Swift House can provide services, we have to maintain compliance with the federal rules and regulations. TJ Swift House is a contracted provider of the Department of Mental Health. The purpose of the Home and Community-Based Waivered Services Rule is to ensure that people receive services in settings that are integrated into the greater community. This includes opportunities to seek employment and work in competitive and integrated settings, engage in community life, control their own personal resources, and receive services in the community to the same degree as individuals who do not receive Hcbs services. There are many components to the Hcbs rule. The following must be assured for people we serve to maintain compliance with the federal regulation: access to the community, access to employment, access to personal resources, have a choice in where they live, due process if there are any restrictions, access to privacy, housing opportunities, to be treated with dignity and respect, to be able to file an anonymous complaint, to have choices, to have visitors, access to services and supports, a fair rental agreement, and accessibility. We'll first talk about access to the community. TJ Swift House will ensure that people know about their community and are supported in making choices related to accessing their community, including local businesses, recreational opportunities, types of transportation services available, local events and activities, churches, and service civic organizations. Next is employment. TJ Swift House will ensure that people who wish to work are supported to do so. If they choose to work at a workshop, that's perfectly fine. If they would prefer to work in the community for competitive wages, then we will support them in pursuing their job. Money management and personal resources. People will have control over their wages and their personal spending money. While people have control over their wages and their personal spending money, TJ Swift House will manage funds to pay for housing and expenses such as food and utilities. Community resources. People will receive supports on locating community resources of their choice. Such resources as medical services, mental health services, social functions, and recreational activities. Choice of settings. People we support will have input on where they live, with whom they live with, and the direct support professionals in their home. If people express they want a different service at other locations, TJ Swift House will assist. People will be offered experiences in the community alongside with others without disabilities. People will have the opportunity to give input in the selection of a housemate. Restrictions. The only time restrictions are implemented is if there is a need for safety and is detailed in their ISP and approved by the planning team. Rights will be protected through due process, which is a plan on how to gain the right back. Privacy. Individuals have a right to privacy. Individuals will have a privacy in their bedrooms. Staff will always knock before entering a person's room, bedroom, or bathroom. Extra effort will be made to ensure privacy in bedrooms and bathrooms, except when assistance is needed and documented in the ISP. All exterior doors to a person's home will have locks. If people want to carry a key, they will be assisted with getting one. Appropriate staff will have access to exterior doors and bedroom door keys, but will always knock before entering. Bedroom doors can have locks, and people will be given a key or other access to their own bedroom door. Housing opportunities. TJ Swift House will work with people who have the desire to live in the community and will receive information on affordable housing. TJ Swift House will give choice of housing options and living arrangements. People we serve will decide where they want to live, who lives with them, and who they want to provide their supports. Code of conduct. TJ Swift House and all staff recognize the importance of treating individuals with dignity and respect. Protect health and safety. If anybody suspects an individual has experienced any abuse, neglect, or misuse of consumer funds or property, our first duty is to 1. Protect the person's health and safety, and 2. Staff must follow agency policy and criteria for reporting events. Compliance with laws. All staff will conduct business activities in compliance with all applicable laws and TJ Swift House policies. All staff are expected to take appropriate action against coworkers who violate laws or policies. During your orientation, you'll receive the Code of Conduct and the Abuse and Neglect definitions. Grievance policy. People we support can talk to staff anytime they are unhappy with staff or the services provided, and TJ Swift House will try to resolve the issue. We will help the people contact their guardian or their case manager if needed. If the issues have not been resolved, the person served and/or guardians can file a verbal or written complaint. TJ Swift House will have the Division of Developmental Disabilities complaint process and anonymous complaint information available for people and guardians. Freedom of choice. TJ Swift House will practice informed decision-making strategies with people for making choices about their daily activities, how to spend their free time, community activities, spending money, employment, and all aspects of living. Visitors. People served are encouraged to invite family and friends to visit in their home. It should be noted that as with any housemate situation, there needs to be respect for the other person living in the home. If the housemate doesn't want company, a negotiation needs to be made to meet everyone's needs. The process of negotiation is facilitated by the direct support professional. Services and supports. The person served will have input in staff and supports. If multiple people request the same staff, TJ Swift House will ensure people have fair access to their preferred staff as available or appropriate. TJ Swift House will offer different options to people so they may make an informed decision. Rental agreement. There may be times when people rent homes that are owned by TJ Swift House Incorporated. If that occurs, people served have a legally enforceable agreement or lease that offers protection from eviction under landlord-tenant law of the state, county, and city. Individuals are free to express what they want to relocate or request new housing without risk of losing services. If a person is living in a house owned by TJ Swift House Incorporated and they request to live elsewhere, they will still receive habilitation services through TJ Swift House. Likewise, if a person no longer wishes to receive habilitation services from TJ Swift House, their residence can remain in the house. Accessibility. TJ Swift House will ensure that all people have access to their home and community. Practical accommodations will be offered to allow for the people to move about freely in their home. This concludes the portion of federal regulations TJ Swift House adheres to. As a direct support professional, you'll be the person to assure these actions are implemented consistently. Your next presentation is on state regulations called Missouri Quality Outcomes.